Tonight, we begin with a development that military analysts, Western officials, and intelligence observers had feared, debated, and carefully tracked. A shift that unfolded not over months, but in a matter of days. Days that reshaped pressure along key front lines. Days that triggered urgent consultations across European capitals. Days that forced a reassessment of what winning in this war actually means. What Russia did this week crossed a line that NATO planners had hoped would hold, a threshold of tempo and coordination they believed Moscow could not easily sustain. And when that line bent, Ukraine and its allies did not hesitate. They responded with speed, precision, and coordination that signaled readiness rather than panic. For weeks now, there had been signals, not official announcements, not formal declarations, just signals that Russia was preparing something unusual. Russia has been aggressive, yes, but also methodical in its aggression. Its moves often follow a rhythm: pressure, pause, regroup, push again. But what set off alarm bells in Kiev and Washington this month was that the rhythm went silent. Analysts who monitor Russian activity watch familiar indicators: troop rotations, artillery repositioning, fuel and supply flows, and shifts in communications traffic. Much of that suddenly quieted. And whenever Russia goes quiet in one sector, it can mean something louder is coming in another. Early this week, Ukrainian and Western intelligence sources detected what they described as a concentrated force buildup, including armored elements and long-range strike systems that had not been massed in that area in months. These are the kinds of assets Russia typically deploys when signaling escalation, deterrence, or an attempted breakthrough. Observers did not immediately know which category this fell into, or whether it was meant to blur all three at once. But they did know Russia was adjusting its operational posture. And when a nuclear-armed state shifts posture without explanation, even incrementally, defense planners pay attention. The response from Western defense officials was not routine, not symbolic, but urgent. Sources after rapid consultations described Russia's move as deliberate, risky, and designed to test resolve. Pressure tactics only work if the other side hesitates. Ukraine did not. Within hours of detecting the shift, Ukrainian forces repositioned air defenses, reinforced vulnerable sectors, and adjusted reconnaissance coverage. These were not cosmetic moves. They were high-priority deployments associated with preparation for major combat pressure. Officials later indicated that Ukraine conducted targeted counterstrikes on Russian staging areas, including logistics nodes analysts believe were being prepared to support renewed offensive activity. Ukraine acted before Russian forces could fully synchronize. Fuel storage sites were hit. Artillery positions were disrupted. Command points believed to be coordinating follow-on actions were targeted. In other words, Ukraine focused on the machinery that turns buildup into momentum. That is why the warnings from Western capitals carried urgency. Russia's posture shift was actionable, not theatrical. Left unchecked, it might have enabled sharper battlefield pressure. Ukraine's response was forceful but measured. Not reckless, not impulsive, but strategic. Rather than chasing symbolic targets, planners prioritized timing and operational value. Here is where the story becomes more revealing. Analysts now believe Russia's move was intended to probe Ukrainian defenses after months of grinding attrition. Moscow may have been testing for fatigue, looking for thinner lines or slower reactions. Instead, Ukraine demonstrated coordination and adaptability. The response was structured enough to suggest strong intelligence integration and command cohesion. That matters because it shows Ukraine is not only absorbing pressure, but attempting to shape the tempo of events. As more reports came in, the scale of Ukraine's actions became clearer. Air defense units intercepted incoming threats, limiting damage and preserving infrastructure. Drone teams targeted supply routes, reinforced in recent days. Artillery elements disrupted forward assembly areas where Russian units appeared to be concentrating. This was not just resistance. It was battlefield management and denial strategy, complicating an opponent's ability to convert mass into movement. History provides context. Early in the war, Russia appeared to assume a rapid campaign. Expectations of swift political collapse and fading Western unity did not materialize. Ukraine adapted. Outside support continued, and the conflict became a prolonged contest of endurance, logistics, and will. What makes this moment significant is that Russia's latest move comes amid visible strains. Military demands, economic pressure, and political expectations create competing incentives. Leaders under that kind of pressure do not always act from comfort. They often act from constraint. Moves meant to project strength can also reflect urgency. NATO's public messaging reflected that awareness. Officials described Russia's posture as inconsistent with de-escalation, diplomatic language signaling that the alliance is watching closely and coordinating responses. Such phrasing is rarely casual. Ukraine's leadership also spoke, emphasizing awareness, preparation, and continued defense. Those remarks were not rhetorical flourishes but signals meant for domestic and international audiences alike. Resolve, continuity, and intent. Analysts now weigh several possibilities. Russia may be probing, posturing, or preparing another push. Ukraine, however, signaled it will not wait passively. It acted early, in coordination with partners, to complicate any rapid shift in battlefield balance. Tonight, Russia appears quieter in the affected sector. Quiet in war does not always mean calm. It can mean recalculation. Because this week underscored a broader reality. Momentum in modern warfare is fragile. Pressure can backfire, and claims of imminent victory often overlook the resilience and adaptation on the other side. This story is far from over. But for now, one point stands out. Russia remains capable of pressure. Ukraine remains capable of response. And the outcome of this war remains uncertain, shaped not by a single surge, but by sustained decisions on both sides.